If you'd like to be able to be in your inbox, in your Gmail inbox, and in one click get those emails or an email into ClickUp for later review, I have got the thing for you. This is a great automation that you can set up using make.com. I've also got a video on how to do this with Zapier, which I will link above. And with make.com, if you're not familiar with this, I'm going to step through some of the simple kind of setup parts, but then I will show you the completed setup and exactly what you need to have in there and a couple things to be aware of. So with make.com, this is really handy. You can come in, and once you have signed up for an account, you can do this with a free account. You're going to be displayed with this kind of scenario is what they call them. It's a page and you need to start somewhere. And we really only need to have two things. We're going to be using Gmail and we're going to send it to ClickUp. And in the middle of that, we're going to do a little bit of text parsing because otherwise we can have some issues. And I will explain what that looks like. You may or may not need to do this, but it is very important. So this may take you some time to set it up. When you do this for the first time, I would say stick with it. It's well worth it. This can be a huge time saver if you're like me, if you tend to get distracted in your inbox. This can be really good for like your daily review as you go through, and maybe you look in your inbox and say, okay, these 4 emails are really important. I've starred them, and then I'm going to go on and do my daily review, or however you process things and do your project or task management, assumedly using ClickUp. You could, of course, pipe this to somewhere else, but in this example, I'm showing how to connect it to ClickUp. Okay, so like I said, this would be the screen you'd be at. This is a new scenario, and if you haven't used it, you would need to start with Gmail, and you would click on that, and you would need to authenticate your Google account just like you're signing in or authenticating with Google anywhere else. So you would go through and do that, and when we add ClickUp, you would need to do the same thing. If you haven't authenticated it, you would just give you the pop-up, hey, do you allow make.com, blah, 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 right? Yes, you do. Got to make sure you authenticate that stuff. And this is what it looks like at the end. Okay, so this is pretty simple. I'm going to go ahead and go into my inbox, for example, and hey, this looks like a great email to star. I'm going to go ahead and star that. And now we're going to hop back in here, and I'm going to show you exactly what I have going on here. So I have this set to on. I do have a free account with make.com. It's set to run every 15 minutes. But what we have here are the 3 things I talked about. We're watching emails, and we're using a text parser to replace something, which I will explain. You may or may not need this. And then in ClickUp, we're creating a task. So let's go into each one of these and see how this is set up. Like I said, you need to authenticate, and you can name it whatever you want. You can, I just have it called Gmail Productivity Academy, so I know what it is. For the folder, I had it set to all mail. It added this /all mail. It seems to work. I didn't do that, but in case you see that, I only really selected that, and when I came back, it added that. So in case you have the same issue, I didn't have to select this. It was just kind of there. And down here, you have a few choices. You have simple filter or Gmail filter. You're going to want to use the Gmail filter. And your query, because how this works is it's basically saying, okay, I'm going to operate off of like a query in the Gmail kind of search bar, and we want to find is starred. So what has been starred that it hasn't seen before. And then mark email messages as read. I don't need to do that. If you do, I suppose you could change that. And then maximum number of results, you could adjust this. This is just so it's not going to grab, a zillion of these things at once. And I just have it set to 5. Okay. And once we've run it, you can see some information. You may or may not need this to troubleshoot. It can be a lot if you're not familiar with make.com, but if you follow kind of what I've said here, this should work well for you. Now, when you're setting this up, something I can't see right now is it asks you when you want to start. Like, do you want to look at all emails over all time ever? I wouldn't want to do that. I'm not sure if that would result in like erroring out if it's looking through your entire count of all history. I just put the day before the day I set this up, and that seemed to work just fine. So you can use that. Now, the text parser. This is interesting. So if you have multiple Gmail accounts, let's say you have a personal account, you have a business or a couple business accounts or G Suite accounts, right? You're using it for a business or with an organization. You might notice this up here. If you're signed in to more than one account, it starts incrementing them. So you can see the number 2 up here. If I was in the first account I had signed in on this browser, it would be a 0. If you're just using one account, you're good. If you're never going to be, signed into multiple accounts, that's great. You don't have to worry about this. But a weird thing happens if your pulling the information from Gmail, which we will be doing in ClickUp, because it's saying, okay, I've got your email, and now in ClickUp we want to take things like the subject line, who it's from, and the link to the email. It automatically gets formatted as a 0, which if you click on that, it would go to the wrong place. It wouldn't make any sense. So again, if you're only signed into one Gmail account, you don't need to worry about this. But if you're signed into more than one, you do. All right, so I'm going to go through this real quick and assume you are. If you're not, you could just move on straight to the ClickUp part. So the pattern we're going to match here is we just need to say, okay, well, I guess we could just do the number. I've just done it like this, where it's the /u/0. That would be what it's going to find in the email. And I want to give it the 2 because that's what actually exists here in this account. And then global match is what I did. I said yes, case sensitive, and the rest of these I said no. And then what text is it actually looking at? When you click on here, you need to select something for it to look at, and it's the message link. That's all we're trying to fix. So we do that, we say okay, and now when we go to set up ClickUp, we kind of have the same thing. I'm going to skip down here and I'll come back to the top. But you can see it's slightly different color because what we're doing here for the task name in ClickUp, I gave it email to action and then the subject line, and that's coming from Gmail. The sender name's coming from Gmail, but the message link, we do not want to use that one from Gmail. We want to use the one from the text parser that we replaced. Again, if you are only signed into one Gmail account, you're safe. You can use the Gmail link. But if you're doing it like me, where you're replacing something, you need to make sure you're using the correct one. Otherwise, you'll get the 0. You'll click on it. It won't go anywhere. Okay, so coming back up here to the ClickUp stuff, you just need to select your workspace, your space, folder, and a list. Okay, go through, select that stuff, tell it where to put it, and then you can follow my example or you can change it. In the task name, I like to know that it's an email. This is just static text that I typed. And then I have the subject line in it. Generally, subject lines are fairly descriptive, or at least helps me understand what the email's about. And then who the sender is and a link to the email so I can click on it and get directly back to the email, right? I'm not going to the inbox. I'm not going to anything else. I'm going directly to the email. And then down here for the content, plain text, and then again I have the URL again in case I need it while I'm down here looking at the content. And again, I just repeat who it's from, subject, and the text content. And this stuff is really up to you. But for me, I go ahead and assign it to myself. I don't use any tags. I have the status set to open. This will depend on the statuses you use in your ClickUp setup. And then the due date, I have it set to the date of the email so that it's either a past thing or a today thing. It's not like the email was sent in the future or something like that. But that way I do a lot of filtering on dates, and I'll look for anything, for example, today that is either has a due date of today or previous to make sure I'm not missing anything or it doesn't have a date or things like that. You may want to play with that, but I found that to be an easy way to grab a date that was in the right format. I do not have a due date time, and then there's other stuff in here you can fill out should you need it. Okay? So we're going to go through here, and I can't recall if I already ran it or not, so I'm going to go ahead and do that since we started that email earlier, and I guess I already did because it says it didn't return any new data. So let's go in and see what this looks like in ClickUp. And I want to show you real quick. Here's one that I did earlier while I was testing this, and you can see this down here. We've got the 0 right there, okay? And that will not work, okay? And if we do this, now we have got the correct link, and we can see that we've just got some simple text that I sent myself. Everything's in here. It's good to go. And we have automated from Gmail into ClickUp with one click by just starring it. So if you have any questions, comments about this, leave it below and I'll get back to you. Thanks for watching.